What if I told you that the iPhone 17 lineup, despite being Apple's biggest launch of the year, might actually highlight the company's biggest weakness instead of its strength? Because that's exactly what's happening right now. Apple fans are starting to lose patience, and the missing piece is a foldable iPhone. Here's the surprising part. According to a recent survey, only about 3% of iPhone users said they're holding out specifically for a foldable iPhone. That sounds tiny, right? But when you dig deeper, the real story isn't that small number. It's the 20% who say they'd consider switching to a Samsung Foldable and the 10% eyeing Google's Foldable Pixel. Put together, that's 30% of Apple's customer base openly entertaining the idea of jumping ship. For a company that has built its empire on rock-solid brand loyalty, that's not just a blip, that's a warning sign. So why does this matter? Apple's entire playbook has always relied on one thing: keeping users inside its ecosystem. Once you own an iPhone, you probably end up with an Apple Watch, maybe AirPods, then a MacBook, and suddenly switching feels impossible. But foldables are breaking that spell. They're the only category where Apple isn't leading, and competitors like Samsung and Google are showing that being first actually counts. If even a fraction of iPhone users decide to try a foldable from another brand, that could snowball into a bigger shift than Apple wants to admit. Now let's talk about the iPhone 17 family itself. We're getting the iPhone 17, 17 Air, 17 Pro, and 17 Pro Max. The big innovation this year? An ultra-thin iPhone 17 Air, thinner than anything we've seen before. On paper, it sounds impressive, a 5.5mm profile. But here's the catch. It also comes with a much smaller battery, around 2,800 milliamp hours. Meanwhile, Samsung's Galaxy S25 Edge already offers a 3,900 milliamp hour battery in a body that's only slightly thicker. Apple's chasing thinness, but at what cost? More Apple fans than ever are starting to question whether these design priorities really serve them or just Apple's aesthetic obsession. This is where the foldable factor becomes even more important. When the iPhone 16 came out last year, almost no one, literally 0.1% of surveyed users, said they were considering leaving for Samsung or Google. Fast forward to today, and suddenly 30% are at least thinking about it. That's not just a jump, that's a seismic shift in sentiment. Apple may still sell tens of millions of iPhones this fall, but the cracks in loyalty are becoming too obvious to ignore. And here's the bigger risk. If Samsung beats Apple again with the Galaxy Z Fold 8 and Z Flip 8 next year, that could be the tipping point. Apple is reportedly planning its first foldable iPhone for 2026, aiming for 8 to 10 million units sold in its first year. But by then, Samsung might already have an even more polished 8th generation foldable with a loyal base of users who gave up waiting for Apple. Timing really is everything here. To put it simply, Apple is in unfamiliar territory. For decades, it's been the trendsetter, the company everyone else chases. But in foldables, it's the one playing catch-up. That doesn't mean Apple can't still dominate when it finally enters the market. History shows that Apple doesn't have to be first to win, it just has to get the execution right. The problem is, the longer it waits, the more people will wonder if they should bother sticking around. Personally, I think this is one of the most fascinating shifts we've seen in years. Apple isn't losing its fan base overnight, but the psychology is changing. People used to say, "Oh, wait, because Apple will get it right." Now more are saying, "I'm tired of waiting. Let's see what Samsung or Google has to offer." That's a subtle but powerful change in mindset. The iPhone 17 family will still sell millions, no question, but it won't solve Apple's growing problem, the sense that it's falling behind in the one area everyone is curious about: foldables. The real story isn't about thinner iPhones or even bigger Pro models. It's about whether Apple can keep its most loyal fans from wandering off before the iPhone Fold finally arrives. And right now, that's looking more uncertain than ever. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. Take care.